For 45 centuries, this is what we've seen, a monument of impossible scale, standing silent on the edge of the Sahara. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the last surviving wonder of the ancient world. For generations, we've been told a simple, almost brutal story about how it came to be. A ruthless pharaoh, a legion of slaves, and decades of backbreaking labor under a searing sun. It's the story we've all seen in movies and the one many of us learned in school. But here's the problem. Practically everything about that story is a myth. It's a narrative we inherited from Greek historians who lived 2,000 years after the pyramid was already ancient. What if that story isn't just wrong, but is hiding a truth so profound it could rewrite our entire understanding of ancient human potential? The Great Pyramid of Giza. We're told it was built by slaves. But in a forgotten corner of the desert, just a stone's throw away, archaeologists found something that changes everything: a lost city, and even the personal diaries of the men who actually built the pyramid. And what these finds reveal completely upends the official story. The truth isn't about aliens or a lost civilization. It's far more impressive. Stick around, because the real identity of the pyramid builders will shake you to your core. To understand the lie, you first have to appreciate the miracle. The Great Pyramid, built for the pharaoh Khufu around 2600 BC, is an engineering masterpiece that would be a challenge even today. It's made of an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks. While many are smaller, locally quarried limestone blocks, some of the granite beams brought from Aswan weigh up to 80 tons, the equivalent of a dozen elephants. These were behemoths, quarried and transported from hundreds of miles away. For centuries, the sheer scale of this project made the slave labor theory feel plausible. How else could you mobilize the manpower? The Greek historian Herodotus, writing 2,000 years after Khufu's reign, painted a picture of 100,000 men toiling in miserable shifts. Hollywood loved this image, giving us epic scenes of workers being whipped into submission. It's a powerful story, but it's one that completely crumbles under scrutiny. The first crack in this story isn't about manpower, it's about precision. The Great Pyramid is aligned to true north with an accuracy that would make modern architects sweat. Its 13-acre base is level to within less than an inch. The original outer casing stones, made of fine white Tura limestone, were polished and fitted so perfectly that you couldn't fit a razor blade between them. This is not the work of an exhausted, demoralized, and unskilled slave army. This is the work of artisans, of masters. Slaves driven by force don't achieve this kind of quality and mathematical perfection. This level of craftsmanship requires pride, skill, and an almost fanatical devotion to detail. So if it wasn't slaves, who could have possibly pulled this off? For a long time, the lack of an answer created a vacuum, and that vacuum was filled with wild speculation. Lost technologies, ancient aliens, a civilization from Atlantis. But while the world was looking to the stars for answers, the truth was waiting right there in the sand, just a few hundred yards away. For decades, archaeology at Giza was all about the tombs of kings and queens. But archaeologist Mark Leiner decided to look for the people, not the pharaohs, but the thousands of hands that actually raised these monuments. His question wasn't just, how did the Egyptians build the pyramids? But, how did the pyramids build Egypt? Starting in 1988, Leiner and his team began excavating a patch of land just south of the Great Pyramid. What they found there wasn't a slave camp. It was a city, a sprawling, highly organized settlement now known as Hayt el Ghurab, the lost city of the pyramid builders. This wasn't a temporary work site, it was a planned urban center. Excavations revealed long barracks capable of housing thousands of workers, industrial-scale bakeries that could produce thousands of loaves of bread a day, and even breweries. Most tellingly, they found mountains of animal bones. Analysis showed the workers at Giza were eating a protein-rich diet, consuming thousands of pounds of meat from cattle, sheep, and goats every single day. This was not the diet of slaves. This was the diet of valued, state-supported employees. Current estimates suggest a dedicated, rotating workforce of 20,000 to 30,000 people, not the 100,000 slaves of legend. The most profound discovery, however, came from a nearby cemetery. Here, archaeologists, including the famed Dr. Zahi Hawass, uncovered hundreds of simple tombs. These were not the unceremonious graves of slaves. These workers were buried with honor, with tools and food for the afterlife, in the shadow of the very monuments they helped create. Some tombs even had inscriptions with titles like Overseer of the Craftsmen and Inspector of the Masons. As Dr. Hawass has said, this is the ultimate proof. Slaves would never have been granted a proper burial so close to the sacred pyramids. These were Egyptians, skilled craftsmen, and laborers from all over the country, participating in a national project. Graffiti left by work gangs inside the pyramids even bears proud, boisterous names like the Friends of Khufu Crew. This wasn't a prison, it was a thriving metropolis, the logistical heart of the most ambitious construction project in human history. So, we've established the builders weren't slaves, but a paid, respected workforce living in their own city. This completely changes the narrative we've been told. But the biggest secrets are still to come. If you're finding this as fascinating as I do, and you want to continue peeling back the layers of history with us, take a moment to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. It helps the channel immensely, and you won't miss the groundbreaking evidence we're about to reveal. Trust me, you'll want to be here for this. For millennia, we had no first-hand accounts from the time of the pyramid builders. No blueprints, no schematics. All we had was the monument itself. Then, in 2013, a French-Egyptian team led by Pierre Taulet made a discovery that Egyptologist Zahi Hawass called the greatest discovery in Egypt in the 21st century. At a remote site on the Red Sea coast called Wadi al-Jarf, they explored a series of ancient caves used to store boats. Tucked away in a gap, they found rolled-up papyrus scrolls, the oldest ever discovered. And they weren't religious texts. They were logbooks. The personal, day-by-day account of a man named Mirer. His diary is dated to the end of Pharaoh Khufu's reign, right when the Great Pyramid was getting its finishing touches. Mirer was a mid-ranking official and inspector in charge of about 40 elite boatmen. For the first time in history, we could read the words of someone who was actually there. And his diary reveals a logistical masterpiece. Mirer's logbook, laid out almost like a modern spreadsheet, documents his crew's daily activities. He describes sailing to the quarries at Tura to pick up the fine, white limestone for the pyramid's outer casing. Day by day, he logs his team's work, hauling stones at Tura, then loading his boat and sailing toward Khufu, the horizon of Khufu, the ancient name for the Great Pyramid. Mirer's diary is a treasure trove of detail. He describes making 2 or 3 round trips every 10 days, delivering hundreds of blocks a month. And his was just one of many such teams. The diary also shows the project was managed from the very top, mentioning that Mirer reported to the Vizier Ankaf, Khufu's own half-brother. Most importantly, Mirer talks about a system of canals dug to bring boats right to the base of the pyramid, docking at a harbor called the Lake of Khufu. This ingenious system of waterways solved one of the biggest mysteries: how they got massive stones from the Nile to the pyramid itself. They let the water do the work. So let's put the pieces together. The lie was of 100,000 slaves driven to their deaths. The truth, revealed by the lost city and the diary of Mirer, is infinitely more impressive. The real answer, the one that should shake you, isn't that aliens built the pyramids. It's that we have criminally underestimated the ancient Egyptians. The builders of the pyramids weren't a nameless, faceless horde. They were men like Mirer, skilled, organized, well-fed, and motivated. They were part of a complex social machine, a national project that mobilized the country's resources. This was a civilization that could plan and execute a multi-generational project with stunning precision, creating a purpose-built city for tens of thousands of people and a bureaucracy to manage it all. But what about the final piece of the puzzle, the lifting? How did they get blocks, some weighing tons, up the side of a structure that would eventually stand 481 feet tall? The old theory of a single, massive ramp seemed impractical. But in 2018, in an alabaster quarry at Hatnub active during Khufu's time, archaeologists found something remarkable. They discovered the remains of a ramp flanked by 2 sets of stairs with a series of post holes. This strongly suggests the Egyptians used a sophisticated rope and pulley-like system. By using wooden posts as force multipliers, teams could haul massive blocks up incredibly steep slopes, far steeper than 20%. While this exact system hasn't been found at Giza itself, likely because the ramps were dismantled, its existence during the same period is a game-changer. It proves they had the technology. The reality wasn't slaves dragging stones up a dirt pile. It was brilliant engineers and powerful teams of skilled workers using sophisticated mechanics. They used levers, sledges lubricated with water, and a complex system of ramps powered by human strength and clever engineering. The pyramid wasn't built by magic or extraterrestrials. It was built by a society so advanced and so organized that for centuries, the only way we could explain their achievement was to invent stories of slaves or aliens. The truth is, they didn't need any help. They were among the most brilliant engineers, architects, and project managers the world has ever known. The story of the pyramid builders is not a story of oppression. It is a story of human achievement. The discovery of the workers' city and the Diary of Mirror has finally allowed us to give these people their due. They were not slaves. They were builders. They were fathers, sons, and brothers who lived, worked, and were buried with dignity. They were fed, paid in rations, and honored for their work. For 4,500 years, the pyramids have stood as a testament to the power of a pharaoh. But today, they stand for something more. They are a monument to the ingenuity, organization, and sheer willpower of the Egyptian people. The answer to who really built the pyramids isn't a conspiracy. It's the thousands of forgotten Egyptians whose skill has been buried under a myth for far too long. We now have a much better idea of who built the pyramids and how. But replacing a simple lie with a complex truth just opens up new questions. Now that we know the builders were brilliant Egyptian engineers, what other lost technologies and forgotten knowledge might still be waiting to be rediscovered, buried beneath the sands of time?